Man, this thing came out awesome. What I did is I put about 5 coats of clear on it. I wanted to kind of tone it down just a little bit, and it's a little bit smoother for the decals to stick. The more clear you put on, the more it'll take that kind of a dry, powdery look out. But you know, if you like that more of a dry look and a true rust, then don't put as many coats. So anyway, that's what it looks like. It's kind of almost got green up in here too, and it's probably not totally dry. It may even change a little more, so you can check our website to see how it looks. Okay, anyway, so this is going to be painted next. I'm going to show you how to mask around here, and then we'll get this stuff painted. Okay, with your side covers, if you'll notice, I have a video earlier in the videos in our website that shows you how to remove these side covers. And then to remove the Yamaha decal, these are not clear coated over on our bike. So what we can do, we can just take a heat gun or a blow dryer. Now be careful on this, just warm them up a little bit. They don't need to get very warm. Just a little warm to the touch will help. If you get it too hot, the plastic will actually melt a little bit. So just a little warm, and then you can peel that off with your fingernail. You might even try it first without warming it up. Okay, if you'll notice, I've prepped everything for paint. I went over everything with a 3M pad. That way you can dull the surfaces. You have to have those little minute scratches on that surface in order for the paint to adhere properly. So do that, and then I'm going to do the final wipe down with some solvent before I paint this. Make sure they're really dry when you start painting. And I'm going to show you the secret to doing a rattle can paint job. Okay, if you'll notice, I've got the drop cloth over the bench here, and I've covered everything around this area because I don't want the overspray to get on everything. So do that first, and then one of the most important things about painting is the light. Make sure there's good light, because if you can't see what you're doing, you got to be able to see that surface in order to not get orange peel or overspray. And then the other thing is ventilation. Make sure you get have some decent ventilation. I mean, you don't want to paint this stuff outside unless it's a dead calm day, but you know, this stuff's stinky. This paint is stinky, so you don't want to gas yourself out. Okay, so anyway, I've got good light. I'm ready to go here. Now, what we do, and the main problem people have, is they try to dump too much paint on at a time. The key to painting is to go light coats, let it dry just for a little bit, and then do the next coat and do light coats. The way that works is the previous coats, once they tack up a little bit and dry, they'll actually hold the next coat. So that's the key, is you got to get light coats, and then that last coat you can kind of go a little heavier, and the paint underneath will kind of hold it and keep it from running. So the key is to start with light coats. Shake the can up good. We're just going to put some light coats on to start with. You don't need to worry about coverage. And we'll do that. We'll let that one dry a little bit, and then we'll do the next one. It's been about 10 minutes. This stuff's tacked up, so I'm going to go ahead and put another coat on. There again, light coats. Trying to get it as even as possible, but don't worry about a little bit of overspray. Okay, this is actually my 5th coat. I've just gone over it lightly with real light, smooth coats. And now we're ready for the final coat. It's only been about 5 minutes since I put the last coat on, so that should be about right for this stuff to adhere to the paint underneath and keep it from sagging. So let's go ahead and do the final coat. There again, light coats. As you go over it, you'll see overspray. It'll melt into it, and then if there's a little bit too much overspray, just go over it lightly again. It'll just melt itself together. You don't want to try to dump a bunch of paint on at one time, or you will get runs. And there it is. Gosh, that thing is beautiful. Just nice and glossy and shiny. It will dull up a little bit as it dries, because this stuff actually has kind of a satin gloss finish to it, which is really nice. Now the temptation now is to try to handle the part or move the part so you can do the next one. Whatever you do, let this dry a little bit enough to where you can handle it, because if you accidentally tip it or something, you might put your hands in it or something and ruin that nice paint job. So let it dry enough to transport it around a little bit, and then you can do your other parts. And then I have already done the gas tank. I'll show you that later here. This is how I mask the rust on the tank here. Make sure you seal all the corners and edges and everything, because you don't want paint blowing in and getting on that rust surface. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off, and we'll take a look and see how it looks. Okay, that's kind of a funny looking combination right now, but I still have hopes that this will look really cool once I get the striping and the graphic on. So I'm going to put a 3/8 silver stripe on both sides here, and then our silver decal here. So hopefully it'll tie it all together and look kind of different. And also, this is almost the color of one of our seats, so maybe I can put a seat that almost matches it on the bike, and that'll kind of tie it all together too. Okay, I decided to do the silver and black pinstriping instead of just silver. The reason for that is because I'm going to use one of these two decals, either our silver with the black or the black with the silver. And I think it'll just tie it all together and make it look really nice. So be careful when you put this on. Make sure your hands are super clean and everything is really, the tank is clean. And go ahead and stretch that a little bit as you go around these angles, because you'll get little bubbles or little wrinkles along this back edge. So stretch that on there and put that on there really nice and straight. And the longer this sits, the more it'll stick. So if you decide to make any changes, be sure and peel it off right away, because once it's on there for a while, it's really hard to get off, especially if it ever gets in the sunshine. And then you can also paint these stripes. That might even be better. It's hard to say, you know. I think these will be okay, because like I say, once this tape's on there for a while, it'll stick like crazy. And then I just got this at the local AutoZone auto shop. I think AutoZone or Checker or O'Reilly, all those stock a certain amount of these tapes. So anyway, that's it, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to put the decals on. We'll use the hinge method. Okay, putting decals on gas tanks and motorcycles can be real tricky. A lot of people wet the tank and put it on with water and all that, but it's a pain, and you can't ever get it positioned properly. So we're going to show you how the professionals put the decals on. This is how they put the big decals on cars and stuff. Is what they do, they use the hinge method. And what that means is you tape the decal on first, just a couple of pieces of masking tape or whatever on the sides, and that way you can position the decal and get it perfectly placed. You can walk around the bike and make sure it's where you want it. And then what we do is we put a piece of tape down this way, and we'll peel it back and do one half at a time. I'll show you how to do that. It's real simple, and you can get this decal on perfectly that way. Oh, one thing too, make sure when you put these decals on, if you use ours especially, don't put the decal too far forward on your tank. Because what happens is, this is the compound curve section up here. It's not quite as, it's all compound curves anyway, but up front it's really bad. And what happens if you get too much compound curve, you'll get wrinkles in the decal, especially the wider section here. So you make sure it's back far enough to where it looks good, but it's still, you know, on this kind of a cylindrical shape right here. If you can imagine putting a decal on a football, it would be really difficult, because the decals don't stretch a lot. So anyway, place that perfectly like that, and we'll continue on here. Next, I put a piece of tape vertically, just so we can hinge it from this side. I put it a little bit back from the center line of this circle. Okay, I hope I don't screw this up. So anyway, what we want to do is we want to peel the decal back like this. This will expose the paper underneath. I'm going to carefully cut that decal. Be careful and don't cut into the paper. Don't cut into the decal. You want to get a pretty clean cut if you can. Kind of screwed up there a little bit, but make sure that's not too feathery there. It'll stick to the decal. Okay, what we want to do, we want to just take this and just take our thumb and very carefully just kind of move forward, kind of back and forth. And we'll stick that decal on like that. Make sure we get it on nice and smooth. And then we'll do the other side. Okay, I'm going to pull the paper back. I've got rid of the tape. Pull the paper back. Peel it off. Make sure there's no little pieces of paper or something back here that might get stuck on the decal. Then same thing here. We just very carefully want to kind of work it toward the back. Iron those wrinkles out and get it stuck really well. Pretty simple, really. Okay, the last step is we're going to peel this clear layer off the top. So very carefully pull that back. Make sure your decal's stuck down before you start pulling it off. And kind of carefully pull that off. Make sure it doesn't catch a piece of the decal or something as you pull it off. And there you have it. Gosh, that looks nice. Make sure you iron it down really well with your thumb or fingers. And this is just like the tape too. Once it's on there for a while, it'll really stick and like crazy. So if you are going to try to peel it off or something, do it right away, because the longer this is on the tank, the more it will stick. And that looks really nice. It just makes a whole different looking bike if you can kind of dress it up like this. Because a real bare gas tank is just kind of boring, and it makes the tank look bigger and bulbous. And there you have it. Do the other side and you're set.